North Highlands Recreation Park District to order. The first item is approval of the minutes. So does anyone have any questions or corrections for the March 8th regular meeting minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Chairperson's report. I attended the spring fling on March 31st. I don't know what it is when we have a public event, we have excellent weather. A lot of families came out. Oh, wonderful event. All the kids were happy. And one thing that was really surprising, and I'm happy people after, or the families, there's quite a few of them decided to stay after the Easter egg hunt, because in the ones that I've attended in the past, once the Easter egg hunt happened, it seemed like there was a mass exodus. Well, there was some, but here, I left, Kat and I left at noon, and there was still a good number of people there waiting to ride the train and doing the crafts and everything. So, great job. Maintenance staff did a great job in ensuring good height on the green where the Easter egg hunts were happening. So hopefully, I'm very confident they mitigated that.
Oh, it was perfect length. It was probably like.
Yeah, it was really good. And then, the park's looking great, so I know that they mitigated that soon after that hunt. So.
Let's go.
All right. So, anyone? Oh, and how did because I stopped by the yard sale that was happening on, what was it, the 17th? So.
I think that's in Mark's report. It's not important.
Madam Chair.
But I can answer your questions about it. Yeah, if it's
No, we met before it happened.
I know, he talks about it.
Yeah. So how did that happen? Because it didn't rain.
It didn't rain. It rained like probably for 5 minutes at the very end when people were cleaning up.
Okay,
And it's
good.
not like, it ended up being like, I would say the majority of people made money. I mean, the person next to us made the most money the team has ever made out of the yard sale.
Well, she had much stuff.
What, they
He
sell a
had a
car?
lot of stuff. Was that?
What, they sell a car?
No, the guy was just quite a salesman. And anybody came by, he sold something.
So so that.
So I think he sold like an empty tire.
No, so that was a pretty good day. I went fairly early, so I don't know if a couple more vendors that weren't set up yet came afterwards, but that.
We're gonna try to do that later in the spring next year, just as much as we possibly can to avoid rain. But look, if we had put it in for April, we could have been hitting the rain again, so you just never know.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I have. So does any of my fellow board members have any nice words to say?
I mean, I'll talk on the spring fling. Yeah, I thought that was great. That Easter egg hunt it was just a shame my grandkids weren't here, but they were in Disneyland.
Yeah, I would rather than do something to
But I had a blast. I mean, it's like Diane said, I felt special, like the Grand Marshal being able to drop the middle of the day.
You guys helped a lot.
Try and, but it was well organized. Those kids there, running everything was, I thought was phenomenal. They were real good. The way it was set up there on the vendors were on one side,
Right.
and it was like a straight line, so you got to see everybody. I thought that was good organization. And yeah, the grass was perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah, that was a good size for Easter egg hunt.
That was good.
All right, so are there any?
Well, I'm saving my comments during Mark's report.
Oh, okay, sounds good. Reports from the standing committee. So, did we have something on the?
Well, actually,
Yeah, we did.
One item. So
well,
what-
wait a minute. We actually had 2 2 items on our agenda, but only one's getting reported on, so
Okay.
I just wanted to talk briefly, because Larry's gonna probably talk about it too. We went over what the budget process is gonna be for the new CFD and timelines and things like that, and what we're gonna have to be doing as the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee. So that was on our agenda, which we talked about, and Larry did a good little presentation for us. And we'll be meeting again by the next meeting to review the budget for the end of the year.
All
And
right,
the other items on the agenda.
all right, sounds good. Administrators report, Larry.
Well, we have the Cherry Blossom Park construction timeline and budget update. I guess I could have made that title a little shorter. Anyway, just to give you an idea of what the process and the timeline is for the park. And keep in mind, the most important thing is, this is a moving target. It's only as good as the projections based on Silverado Homes meeting their timelines, getting permits and selling houses. But I'll just hit a couple of the key points. As Alan mentioned, we have worked with the county in getting a budget process established. They're creating what they call a fund center account. We'll be using the same general ledger account numbers that you're used to seeing. You just won't see all, there's going to be a lot of blanks in there because a lot of things won't apply to that particular budget. SEI will be coming to the board in June to pass the resolution, which you remember last year, we did not pass the resolution because we didn't need to begin collecting the special tax yet, but this year we would like to do that. And just a little bit on the timeline for the park. You've heard this a million times, but I'll repeat it one more time. What triggers the beginning of the process is when the county, or when the Silverado Homes pulls the 113th permit. And once that happens, or prior to that, they actually can begin doing what they call the initial park improvements, but those are really limited in scope to the retention pond. They won't officially really be doing any work on the park area itself. But once they begin that process, by contract, they have 6 months to complete the park. Scott and I met with Kevin Lingy from Herman Lingy Land Group, and they thought that it was probably more of a 3 to 4 month process, but it's smart for us to stay with what the contract says, because if they get behind and we project it's going to be built in 3 months and it's not built in 3 months, then we got issues. So we will, certainly once they begin that process, they have 6 months to complete the park. The end of the park construction, I just went over that. After that, we have what we call a 120-day maintenance period, and that's the developer. It's on his dime to maintain the park for the first 120 days. That's generally 90 to 120 days is what's negotiated in a development agreement. In this case here, if anything's going to go wrong with the park, it's probably going to happen in that time period. It's got a maintenance warranty on it. They'll be taking care of all those problems. Once that 120 days has been exhausted, then there's a 30-day period, although I understand it's really, in real time, it's a little bit shorter than that. But by contract, they have 30 days to finish all the title work, transfer of ownership to the district. So when you look at this and you start projecting that they're anticipating, the developers anticipating hitting that 113th permit in mid-July, and you start going out 6 months, then another 120 days, and then 1 more month. In reality, what you see is that if all those things happen in that time frame, we would not officially take over the park until May or June of next year. Now, could the process be accelerated and sped up? Yes, but not really. The reality of it is the developer only has so many resources that he can put out there to build homes. They build so many at a time. As you know, they're built in phases. Even if the demand is there, doesn't mean that the homes get built quicker. But what could happen is that it could slow down. So I guess in a very short way of explaining it, we're going to take over that park sometime in the last 2 quarters of the next fiscal year, most likely the last quarter, but don't be surprised. Of course, we'll stay on top of this and keep you abreast of everything going on. don't be surprised if if a small glitch happens. We may be collecting money into next year, not spending any, and not really taking over the park until the following fiscal year. But we gotta be prepared for it, because just in case it does happen, we need to be able to have all our ducks in line for it. So, as I mentioned before, every board meeting, when there's something of substance to share with the board, I'll keep you up to speed on this process. That was my few words.
So do you have any questions regarding Sherry Blossom Park? Right. Anything else you'd like to highlight?
Just as Alan mentioned briefly before, that we have put together a timeline for the budget. I do want to point out there is one date change, or if you look down on that page, it mentions that May 7th to 11th, the preliminary budget will be viewed by the Budget Finance and Audit Committee for staff. We have actually moved that date up a little bit. That date's going to be on Tuesday, May 1st. And Alan and Pat both have signed off on that date, so we'll get it done a little bit sooner.
All right, sounds good. Any questions?
That's it.
For Larry? All right, Scott?
Outside of my written comments, happy to answer any questions. I don't have anything to add.
Does anyone have any questions? for
It just
Scott?
sounds like you guys did an awesome job cleaning the K park up, so.
You know,
Oh, my.
it turned into a pretty big task.
I bet it
And,
did.
it hadn't been done in a while. Certainly my tenure, and I've been here 10 years. But the guys got behind it and, without complaint, and the black and whites in the report don't do it quite justice. I mean, the place was literally shining and it smelled so much better.
Yeah, the colors look good.
Oh, you got color. Yeah, I got the black and white. But no, that was it was good cooperation between the park division and the recreation division to free up the space, and we did some other work with the lift while we had it to maximize the time and the expense. So hopefully another 5 years or so before we have to get back at it. But we kind of made Cape Art our focus for the last month or two. We're checking all the light fixtures and we kind of put a fresh coat on the bathrooms, the outdoor bathrooms, away from the preschool, which will be used primarily by programs, basketball, things like that. So a lot of work going into it, but it's all for the good, I think.
Can you thank your staff on behalf of the board?
I absolutely will. Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I got two questions.
Yes.
Is that a big list that Sean has?
Just got it done, organized, and submitted to Larry. 48 items. Ranging from priority 5, which are ones we want to tackle ASAP,
Right.
down to priority 2, which are a couple years down the road maybe. Smaller projects, bigger projects, but it's pretty good size.
I was just curious when I saw it, I said, wow, he might look at, am I really going to come here?
He created it. He went out and did the inspections and then created the list, and then we worked together to kind of put it into a consistent format. And then now we've been able to give Larry a kind of bullet point 1 through 48. This is what needs to happen.
That's a good thing to have, because now it's our focus in future budgets. And that list can change from year to year. We may have a large priority 1, we may not have the money for it, but we may have a bunch of priority, ones, actually 5. We might have a bunch of 4s that are less expensive that we can tackle now because we could, it fits in our budget. But, this is a first go-around. As we go through this, and this will be updated every single year, you're going to find out the list probably actually gets longer, because now we start to see things a little bit with a different set of eyes. We're looking more closely at things. The initial stuff is kind of things you walk by and go, oh, this, and this. And pretty soon, when you start doing some projects and you're tearing walls down, you go, oh my goodness, look at the electrical behind that wall. That becomes a future project, or maybe becomes a immediate project. But no, I'm glad that Scott and Sean were able to put this together, and there's certainly enough there for us to put some projects in next year's budget that we think that are important to address.
Okay, cool. And my second was, I was at my grandson's game at Rock Park, and behind that one field, there's some gang stuff, the Northerners or
Oh, on the
red,
concrete
playground, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Guys usually do a pretty good job catching the graffiti, getting that out, or I'll double check
Yeah,
tomorrow.
it's just some northerner stuff.
Yeah, we'll get it taken care of.
Just as a side note, that you brought Park up, we've got the gates repaired, and we are working to come up with a system that will work on how to close and open those gates. Right now, we have had Paladin take on the task of going over to Brock Park every night at dusk, clearing out the cars, and just making sure that, because we've had some cars, if you go by, you'll know who the regulars are, although I meant to mention Scott today, the Volkswagen showed back up this morning, it's been there for a long time.
That lady is something else.
But what's happening is, they've done a good job. If you go there, it doesn't mean that, because the gates are staying open right now because we don't have the means to close it, but we're working with Paladin to have their guys, they're going to work out some costs for us, having their guys close the gates at night, so that way when they show up, there's someone there, they chase them out, hopefully they lock it, but they're not locking somebody behind the gate. We need to see what the cost is going to be and how that fits into our budget. But I think it's kind of got to be a high priority because Brock Park is it's so highly visible. And, Scott and I drive by it every morning, we kind of trade notes what we saw that morning. Once the park's open, there's nothing that prohibits people from driving a car in there and sitting all day.
Oh, no.
You know, but the key is watch what certain cars do. They go into the parking lot and they back into the space and they go to the far end of the park. So if somebody comes in the entrance and it's somebody a cop or somebody that they're concerned about, they can go right out the gate. I always get a little worried when they kind of back into the spot because obviously they're watching for something. Hopefully once we begin to start locking and closing the gates at night, unfortunately I think it's like the homeless, we're just going to push them off someplace else, but if we do nothing, then nothing changes.
Well, I know the highway patrol likes that parking lot to do radar going up Antelope Road,
Right.
so. I haven't seen them there for a while, but I know they used to do that quite often.
Anyway, as we come back with a plan, we'll share it with you and let you know, what the long-term plan is. But I think we've seen improvements certainly at Freedom Park, and I think Brock is probably actually more visible, certainly to the public than Freedom is.
And there's more traffic through it, way more people go by it now.
Anyway,
Well,
No,
no,
it's
no,
okay.
anyone else having questions, Larry or Scott? Okay, Mark, you're on.
So I don't have anything else to add to my written report. Just besides the fact we touched on the sprinkling. I thought was an awesome event. We were once again blessed with perfect weather for the event. Our vendors showed up on time, which is a huge plus. Not from the year prior, but they should have showed up on time. Everything else just flowed great. Staff did a great job, on task. We probably had, I would guess, on the same amount of people we had the year prior, straight around like 800 people.
Yeah.
But I thought it went really well. Actually, there's one thing I do want to touch on, and it's spring break camp. It's a new idea. Well, it was an idea we had last year. We did it the first time. We had 22 kids in the program last year. This year, we were in like the mid and upper 30s. The program is continuing to grow. We've really filled a need for people in that neighborhood because they don't have anyone else for childcare. But Sarah put so much time and effort into that program that week that it really was a success because Sarah put so much work into it. So she really deserves like a lot of appreciation for what she did. I'm proud of her. She was really stressed out about it, but it ended up being phenomenal. So just want to let the board know that she's doing a great job. Just continue to do so.
Mark, why don't you share a little bit with the status of the swim team enrollment numbers?
All right, so swim team, we are off to a phenomenal start. We are at 86 people that are registered for the team itself. Typically at this time, we have about 60
I would
kids.
say 50 to 60.
50 to 60, because we're waiting for the high school kids, and families also wait till it gets a little warmer outside for the registry. We have about 30 new participants to the team already, which continues to grow. I see 3 different reasons why there could be. One, we have people that are in the junior golf and swim team program, or someone else in the program from last year that joined the team. Our 6 and unders, we now already have 8 6 and unders last year. I think we have 5 total the whole season. Our 7 and 8s are growing. Once again, people now know that Travis is the head coach again, and so he's bringing in a lot of people for the swim team. And then also, we've done a lot more with advertising. They were at the spring fling. They had a great group. We put them next to the trains, so every group came through and talked to them. We picked up probably about 6 different people we know in that event. So we're hoping that it's going to continue to grow. We think it's going to be probably our biggest season we've had, I don't know, probably since at least I've been over this swim team. So we're doing great. Yeah.
Last year you mentioned, I forget which age range it was, but there was just a certain age range that we didn't have many people in.
Right.
Uh,
That was the 6 and unders. So we didn't have a feeder program going into it.
Okay.
So people who were looking for swim lessons, they were having to go to Sunrise or Rio Linda.
Yeah.
And then when once you're in somebody else's pool, you're not sorry, you're going to stay there and you're going to continue to go. So I think the swim lesson program has really made a huge improvement. So not only the swim lesson program, it's a necessity for the public, especially at the affordable rate that we're offering that. But it's been great. And we're also, I think that our swim lessons is probably going to sell out, at least for the 5:30 classes. We have a lot of interest in that. And that's going to start something Monday. So it's continuing to grow. This is early. When we started our swim lessons well before a lot of other parks and recreation stuff. So hopefully we can get more people coming in, and those people can eventually join the team. It's actually, we're seeing the benefits of what we put in last year.
I got a question. How long have we had the online registration?
3.
Is that 2, 3?
2.5.
So are you seeing an increase of folks using that tool for registration?
For a lot of things, swim team is probably the one exception.
Okay.
And I think for a lot of the times, there's a percentage of the fees that goes back on the customer. For, I think it's like 3% that we put back on them. And we get the convenience fee to use the online registration. Because we have to pay a certain percentage.
Right.
A lot of swim team parents will actually come into our office because the fee is so high to register 3 kids. So they'll actually do the work to come down here and register the kids. But all the other programs, like basketball, you can have Cindy, we have no, like, we probably have maybe a 10th of people register for the program actually come to our office to register for it.
I think that's your question is how has the registration changed since we've had that?
Yeah,
Is it helped them?
It's helped a lot.
Okay.
It's helped a lot. For swim lessons, it's constant. We have a lot of people registering for swim lessons online. Every program, probably 90% of it is filled from online registration,
Awesome.
which is great. We sometimes people come in for Freedom Park sessions because they don't know the difference between the aardvark or the constellation. So they come in, for comfort, comfortable questions and stuff like that. So
All right.
that's
Anyone?
a good plus.
Alan?
Now you just added more questions. So you just mentioned a credit card fee. So we charge a credit card fee for people
We
use.
do AccuNet fees. It's AccuNet is like, I think it's 5.5%. So we split the difference with them.
Okay. So is that the online provider or is that the credit card provider?
It's the online.
Okay.
Online.
Okay.
Not the credit card.
I mean, we may want to think about bearing that in the cost or just eating the cost.
Well, when you come to the district office to register,
Right.
that cost actually does not, that cost actually does not happen.
Right, I'm just saying, because if you get rid of that, you'd have more people just doing it online, you wouldn't have people, I mean, that's just something
Yeah.
you may want to think about in the future.
Well, also, another reason why some team parents will come in,
Right.
discount. So like,
Multiple.
kid discount, so they'll come in for that purpose as
Because
well.
the online registration can't.
It does, but they don't,
They don't understand.
they feel more comfortable coming in at times, making sure that they can ensure that they get it. I think is also another thing.
But I think your point about collapsing all those costs into a single cost without having to separate, that makes sense.
Okay. So, spring fling, everything went great, but, which I think I mentioned to you, I heard a lot of parents very upset that the petting zoo closed down as early as it did.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the contractual, relationship we had, for that, but we may want to think of extending that, heck,
So they only go for 1 hour, the petting zoo guys, because of the health of the animals.
Right.
I guess is how they, at least that phase that we go through. So we chose a time period of 10 to 11 because the egg hunts happen typically from 11 o'clock on.
right.
So, yeah, for that purpose,
Yeah,
that's why.
I was just kind of standing around listening, and there were a lot of people really grumpy about that.
Yeah.
What do you mean they're gone already? It's like, yeah.
Well, the stress level, like, did you notice how they had to take out, like, 4 of the bunnies because the stress levels of the bunnies were getting so high?
Yeah.
They had to walk up because they were reading, like, they need like their naps.
So, okay, well, everything else was great.
Yeah.
I actually talked to Travis
Yeah,
for quite a while, and because I've known Travis a long time.
right.
So, but I was disappointed on one other thing though, because I was promised that Terry would be there, and Terry wasn't.
I thought she was going to be there. She promised me.
I know that.
And I promise, I said I might be there.
Okay.
Terry, that's a promise.
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring up one last point. So, of course, I have a color picture, and I noticed that in the bottom color picture, there's this child there that looked really familiar to me, but I didn't see the child's parent there.
Nothing right.
And
My wife was there, I was in the wilderness, so.
There was.
No, she did what? She did a lot of things.
Yeah, there's a bucket of eggs on our above our fireplace. So yeah, she did very well.
she didn't do too well in the petting zoo part, though.
No.
Her little sister did great, but
Maybe next year we'll hire Terry, well, she got rid of her rabbit, now
I
she
did.
no longer has a rabbit. I could bring 12 dogs down
you
there.
could. Just leave the fence up, pull his animals out, put the dogs
They
in.
don't stress out, in fact, they love getting.
I know, I was gonna say.
Okay,
And what we
with
can
the
do is
costumes on?
See, I got pictures of them in costume. I might dress them up every Halloween, even though nobody can do it else.
Or we can set up a little thing and, you know, everybody can buy trees and you can make some
Yeah,
money off the
we
tree.
did sell kibble.
Oh, yeah, then my dogs get all fat in one day.
There you go.
So you want
But no, it was a great event, and I almost got run over by the train a couple times, but I just needed to move out of the way faster.
That was in the water.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys.
Any more comments or questions from Mark? All right, Terry. Oh, are you sure? Oh, you know what? We saved the best for last. All right. Correspondence. We have a letter from the California Association of Parks and Recreation, Capri, regarding our dividend. That's in the packet.
Our dividend from 16 years ago.
I was kind of going to ask that. I mean, that's a little bit in arrears. Yeah, I realize because of insurance, they do this big, long, stretch it out to make sure. But when I saw quite how old that was, I was a little surprised.
Yeah, I just wonder how much the interest they paid off that money.
Not that much.
No. Right, okay, because interest rates have been.
Hope it kept our costs down.
But we'll take the money anyhow.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
take it. And then, the letter from LAFCO, that's on the agenda, correct? Yeah, under new business, okay. Comments and reports from citizens and organizations. We're missing you again, please come visit us and say hi. Okay, so item 9, unfinished business, we don't have anything. Item 10, new business A, the LAFCO call for nominations to the Consolidated Redevelopment Oversight Board for Sacramento County Special District Selection Committee. So does anyone?
I nominate Ms. Richards.
I
second that
kindly
All 30.
decline that. Thank
You got 3 votes,
If I could jump in there, just to let you know, for 2.5 years, 3 years, I was actually a member of one of these committees for the city of Vacaville, who was phasing out a redevelopment agency. It's the most thankless job, and it's tedious work, and the reading and the research you have to do is nothing exciting, and as I was telling Terry, mostly we were dealing with people who were very unhappy that that we could not keep properties that the state wanted back, and this is not, I can't believe they're gonna get a tremendous number of applicants for this job. It's just not a fun thing to do.
Actually, you just said something I want to just comment on. I know it's really not on the agenda, but as everyone knows, we got rid of redevelopment areas. Well, there's 2 bills in the legislature to bring them back, if you didn't know that.
Really?
Economy's better, and now, you know, what was it? Was it $8 billion we lost on redevelopment agencies when Brown wanted that money?
I don't know.
It was pretty substantial at the time, I know that.
I mean, I know the county is the, what's it called? The authority that took it over. So we've had to deal with a lot of, you know, divvying up the money and dealing with all what's the leftovers. But now there's 2 bills about possibly bringing them back.
Huh, I wonder if they'll ever do anything with the rest of Watt Avenue that was supposed to happen.
Well, but the other thing is, I don't know if I'm the only board member that's on the CSDA mailing list, but that's how I find out about a lot of stuff. I read their updates all the time. They actually have a forum now where people can pose questions to other districts, and some of those are pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I've almost jumped on a couple.
Scott and I and Mark are on that, and every day there's like 3 to 4 or 5
Right.
questions that,
Right.
you know, you skim through them,
Right.
some of them might be water districts, which
Right.
may not apply, but then you look at it, somebody's like, hey, we have that kind of a similar issue.
Right,
I'd
so
like to
you
see
kind
what
of
they
follow
say about
what's
that.
going on. Yeah.
That's a fairly new,
I think it's only been within the
Months.
last few months.
yeah.
Uh,
But every morning it's on your,
Every morning, but the problem is now it's every morning, it's like, okay. So I don't read them every day now because it just got to be so many. I go like every 3, 4, or 5 days, I try to read them. But I don't know if anybody else would be interested, and Terry could probably get you signed up somehow.
I'm on that list.
You get that too?
Yeah, just, I don't know, the last few months.
Okay.
They're coming.
The CSDA sends us a little form to say who the board members and everything are, they should
Okay.
get there.
Okay, yeah, because
Oh,
that, you just, the forum is great, but that's, I mean, it's the actual newsletters of stuff that's coming up. That's how I found out about the redevelopment agencies.
save a little money too from having to go to your attorney to answer a
Right.
question when you get legal advice in most cases
I know.
on these topics.
Yeah. So, okay, sorry I digressed.
No, that's all right. So does anyone want to volunteer? Okay. I'm not gonna volunteer, you have enough to do here, Mary. We need a stellar partner at Cherry Blossom, so. Okay, item 10B, board compensation policy 41.0.1. So, does the committee want to comment?
Yeah, no, this is me.
Okay.
Through the committee. This was something that I came up with because this is something that's kind of gone back and forth a number of times because I don't know if we've been consistent in applying our policy because I know in prior years, we used to have, quote, a special meeting to do a park tour before the regular meeting, but we only got paid for 1 meeting. At least I've never got paid for 2 meetings before, and then we had a little park dedication, happened to be the same day as a board meeting, and we got paid for 2 meetings. And I just said, nah, this is nuts. We're not here to make money. I mean, a stipend is just kind of to help defray expenses. So if you have in your board packet the current policy, which is A, attachment A, and the proposed policy, which is B. So basically what it is now, the maximum a board member can earn per day is $100. Budget, finance, and audit, we went through this, Pat and I, we agreed unanimously to bring this forward to the full board. And again, the only thing we're really changing is it's still maximum of $300 per month. I don't think anybody's ever come close to that. But the most you can get paid for is either 1 board meeting or 2 committee meetings in 1 day. Anybody have any questions? If not, I'll make a motion to approve the revised policy number 4110. Oh, 4.1, sorry.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, do we have any further discussion? Do you want to add anything to that?
No.
Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Community center namings. So, Larry, is that one yours?
Yeah, A number of months ago, I think just about the time we were dealing with, the board was looking at naming Cherry Blossom Park, or Alberta Park naming Cherry Blossom Park. We talked about, we have other facilities which might be appropriate to consider, have the board consider naming. And one is our community center. Went through a list of area community centers, and I could not find one that was just called community center, except for us. We often think that the public shows up and they walk right into that community center building thinking that's our main office.
Right.
And my original thought was to take the lettering off, if the board wanted to name the building, is to take the lettering off. It says big letters, community center, and put, Joe Smith Community Center, whatever the name you want to come up with. But I kind of rethought that. One of the projects that is going to be in the budget for next year is that old landscaping in front of the community center, all that brush, is to take that out and do a xeriscape landscaping.
Okay.
I think it puts some backlighting in that shoots up at the community center. It really makes it stand out.
Right.
But similar to the sign that we're proposing for Cherry Blossom Park, which is, I think, what is it, Scott, 6 feet long, kind of one of these type of signs, sits about this high off the ground, and it'll say Cherry Blossom Park, is to put it in kind of the area where some of the shrubs are, and use that as the name. So it could be Joe Smith Community Center, do some backlighting up against that.
Yeah.
And I think most important, rather than, of course, we bring all this back to you, you would sign off on, hopefully sign off on whatever the recommendation might be, or you certainly add to it. I think it's important to start looking at some of the facilities we have here and look at naming them after either prominent people in the community, or give them a name other than community center. And you have a policy that allows you can name benches, you can name playgrounds, there's so many things you can do, but that big building sits out there and it's always just community center. And I think we had some brief conversations about, there was a former employee of the district, long-term employee of the district, that that's the only name that I've had brought to me that they think that would be extremely appropriate, although you haven't asked our opinion, and it certainly is your opinion or recommendation, one, to do it, two, then what do you want to call it. We're in anticipation of this, and again, we can change it if the board decides they don't want to do this, but we're putting money in the budget that will make it part of that landscaping project to put the sign and do that. And I think Scott and I talked about it, looking at maybe early next fall, when summer's over with and the heat's not so hot out there. We don't have, because Mark has his day camp out there. We don't want to be chainsaws and everything out there with kids running around. But anyway, we wanted to put it in front of you and see if you had any interest in it, and see how you'd like to proceed going forward.
Well, I definitely have interest. I didn't know the longest. But I do digress again, one question. So the signage we're talking about, you said about the size, concrete, what?
It's precast concrete.
It's, okay, so it's, I hate to use this, but it's like the Sunrise Park districts, a lot of their parks
Probably,
have
yeah.
something like that, okay. I mean, that's great, that's what I was hoping we were talking about,
Mhm.
because I think those are very nice.
Yeah, it's not going to be a little board sign or
No,
small.
that's fine.
Kevin in his budget or his design plans for
Right.
Cherry Blossom Park gave us actually 2 options of signs.
Right.
Both of them would probably work fine, but I think it was 6 or 6.5 feet long, and I'd say probably about this high.
Yeah.
It's, we would want to scale the sign to not,
Not
blend into the building.
dominating, yeah, no, I.
But we thought, instead of changing, because if we start changing the lettering on the building, I mean, it does stick out quite a bit. It says community center, so you can see that quite a ways away. But then we might have to paint, and we might have to fill in holes.
Right.
It works right now, it doesn't need, there's nothing wrong with it, but maybe the supplement it by putting some signage in front of it,
Right.
recognizing if that's what you chose to do.
Okay. Oh, you want to know who I'm going to suggest? Probably the same
And
person.
I put it out there.
It's probably the same person that you already know is named after Kay Dale.
Yeah. That's the first name that came to my head.
Right. And not necessarily Kay Dale Community Center, just Dale Community Center.
That's totally up to you.
And the other thing that if we do this, like the idea of the signage and maybe get rid of the letters currently, but maybe put kind of a plaque of some kind inside the lobby explaining who the heck she was and what she's done for the district, just so people, who the heck is that?
Well, a way of doing that is to do what they call kind of a rededication of the building.
Right.
We've already, which I think is appropriate. We've already made some internal changes to the
Right.
building. Scott, as part of the this CIP for next year, is recommending additional changes to the building. I think the outside landscaping, my guess is that landscaping is probably as old as the building is.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
And as I mentioned to Cindy or Terry the other day, I said, I'm afraid there might be bones and other things. But I think,
Although there probably are.
I think it's going to give a very it's going to refresh the building. So in doing what you just recommended is we would probably have a brass plaque made
Right.
inside with the board member's name, the date and the time that you did the rededication, and then put something maybe, next to it, a brief history of the person that it was named
Right,
after.
something.
So people look and say, who's Kay Dayhill? I mean,
Right.
if they're gonna, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, they can read about it and say, oh, that's who it is, okay.
Right. Because she was, what, 41 years here?
Yes.
41 years.
She's alive.
Is she still alive?
She came to her and her husband came to her Christmas party, employee Christmas party last year.
Every now and then we'll run into her at Costco in Citrus Heights because she lives over there. I haven't seen her for probably about 3 or 4 months, but I used to run into her.
She volunteers for the sheriff's department for fingerprinting and everything.
At least.
And tap dancing.
Yeah.
And tap that.
She's still doing it, yeah. And her husband was also in Parks and Rec, too. And we gotta make sure we're not naming it after Tom, it's after Kay.
Or Tom will say it's him.
I know.
Or can you contact Kay and see what her preference is? Would you be, would you?
No, I think we gotta just do it.
Just
And
do it?
And just tell her this is what we did.
Well,
I don't think she'd have a problem with it.
I don't think
You know,
so either.
but my only question is, why just Dayhill? Why wouldn't we call it K Dayhill?
At first, you're getting kind of wordy. I mean, we want to make it so people are going to use it too. And that's why I said to do a plaque to say who she is and then Kay Dayhill on the plaque. But the actual signage just put Dayhill. It's like, after I leave and you guys, name the stall in the men's room after me. Use my last name, don't use the full name, okay? I'll blame it on my son.
To make it easier, what we would probably do, Pedro, is come back. I mean, at this point, we're simply asking, would you like to do this?
Right.
The second thing is then put it on next month's agenda for you to officially name it after that person.
Correct.
And then what we would do is, as we develop the signs, we'll make up some mock signs, a couple different signs. One that would have the full name, one that would have just the last name, one that might have, it might just give you some choices to look from. We just basically need it, one, to find out if you want to do it. Two, that gives us a kind of go ahead and plan it as part of the budget process. But we would probably come back to you early this summer to begin the process so we can get everything made and ready to go so we can tie it into the landscape project in front of the building. But I've seen it done both ways. I'm a traditionalist. I like the full name on it.
Right.
Because I think that, it really, maybe Dayhill isn't a common name, but if you go to, no offense, Smith Community Center.
Sounds great.
Don't put any ideas in this.
Zach, we've got something planned for you. You'll be right next to Alan.
I get the sink. No, you get the handicap stall.
But anyway, if you want us to move forward with this, then this is the process we would use. And again, like I said, we give you a couple of different mock-ups.
Right.
And again, you don't even have to select one of those. You can pick and choose and make your own. But I think that Kevin said there's about a 6-week to 8-week lead time on the sign, making the sign. So if we did this project, say in October, begin the process in the summer, then I think we'd have everything ready to go. We have asked, just so you know, we have asked Kevin Leany to just not give us a bid, but give us a cost estimate.
Okay.
I want our staff to actually do the work.
Okay.
We're not gonna, we would have a landscape architect design it,
Right.
but we want our staff to do the work for several reasons. One, we think it'd be a neat project for them to do, and they're capable of doing it.
Oh, yeah.
And I I think there's gonna be a lot of satisfaction other than just mowing grass and fixing
Right.
and repair things.
Exactly.
They actually get to have something to look at, and say,
And
I
they can
did
say,
that.
this is what we did.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. So just as a side question, the actual signage, do we know cost-wise what we're talking about
The
that?
the sign itself was about $5,000 or $6,000.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
figured somewhere.
Yeah, and again, likely we would mount it on like a concrete platform.
Right.
And then, I probably have to talk to Scott and Sean. My first thought was we could, because it gets such great light there, we could probably just put solar lights in. But you can put solar, you can put battery operated. Well, we got an electrician, and it depending on how, where how difficult it is to wire it, we might just put regular lighting in, so we put it on a timer.
Right. Okay, so I'm just gonna go through about in 1 minute for those who don't know Kay. Again, she was here about 41 years. She started, I believe, as the
As
receptionist,
a receptionist.
and she worked all the way up to be the district administrator. And she was the district administrator for how many years about, do we know?
I don't know, just for one.
No, 35,
That long she was the district administrator?
I believe so.
Okay, I wasn't real sure. I know she's been in it for,
That's gotta be one of the longest tenures.
oh, it's
Whether
phenomenal.
it's a district or a Parks and Recreation Department in Sacramento
Yeah.
County history.
It's
It's
phenomenal.
very rarely do you see someone last that long
Right.
as an administrator.
And again, Tom worked here for a while, but then I think he was at Mission Oaks. He was the district administrator there. I mean, I met Tom and I don't know Tom's background enough, but he was around a lot too. So I mean, they both did a lot for Parks and Rec in Sacramento County.
Well, just give you an idea, I worked for a director in the Bay Area who was the Parks and Recreation Director for the city of Millbrae, and he was the director for 37 years.
Wow.
And I don't know of anyone who came close to that. So 35, you said, that's pretty significant.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to, tentatively go forward?
To
Just
give us
move
the
forward?
authority to come back,
Okay.
to go ahead and go forward, and we'll come back to you next month. It could be, for the naming part, but the budget part will be put into the
Right.
budget, so you'll
Okay.
approve that when you approve the whole budget.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to have staff move forward with a renaming project of the community center.
I'll second that.
And do we want to include, use Cave David?
No, because
as a-
they're gonna come back
or
with
you
it.
still want
They-
I know we're
to-
gonna figure out.
I thought, Tara's writing down stuff, so she knows the name we thought of.
Okay,
There is always the option, if the board felt comfortable doing it, you could always invite Kate to come to the next meeting and maybe just tell her the board has a presentation or something for her to see if we could actually get her here. That would probably be nice, or we could just wait till you make a decision.
I think I would rather wait till after the decision is made and then invite her to another meeting and we can actually disclose it, because I don't think.
That'd be a great meeting to have where we could have the name, whatever the name is that you officially want to have on it, be able to show that to her.
Right.
That's perfect.
And because, I know, Kay's retired, but I don't think she's watching YouTube. Our meeting, so, nothing personal.
so we got a motion, we have a second?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, is there, any questions or further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Okay, second to last, item payment of the bills. So does anyone have any questions of the billing report of staff?
He's looking.
So I got a question. So for the first two line items under services and supplies, CSDA conference. So was that like split?
Which one,
We have
That's-
371.97 and
yes, it was split
1403.
because it was Scott's guy, Sean, and they didn't have enough money in their budget.
Okay, so that's what it looks like. We split. Okay.
We have the money, they don't.
Just so you know, Sean is actually, I think he's returning tomorrow. Where's he at, down in the Bay Area?
Danville.
Danville.
Yeah.
He's taken the test to become a certified playground inspector.
Okay.
So now, once he passes that, then we don't have to contract that work out. And actually, in a 2-year period, all the investment we have will pay itself off.
Right, yeah. Oh, no, that's a great idea. Oh, it was just the way the numbers looked, I'm going, did we split some?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I figured I should just clarify. Auditors don't like to see split things, so.
All
I'll make a
right.
motion to ratify payment of the bills.
Second that motion.
Okay, is there any further questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
One last thing, did everybody see that the town pavilion is cleaning?
Yeah. All right, the next regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the North Highlands Recreation Park District will be on May 10th, 2018.